Hey everyone, thanks for joining us here at the Movement Podcast. Before we dive into today's episode, we want to ask you to keep the conversation going. Please feel free to drop a comment or smash the like button. If you really like what you hear today, feel free to share the link on any of your social media platforms so your friends and family can get a chance to jump in as well. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I know you will.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Movement Podcast. I am joined today by Pastor Doris Turner, one of our staff members here at Christ Church, and we are talking about a topic I'm really excited about. We are talking about loss, how we deal with the loss of a friend, a loved one, a family member, and I don't think there's anybody that can do a better job of kind of letting us know what to expect, what we go through, different things like that than our very own Pastor Doris Turner. But before we get into the maybe more emotional side of it, I do want to give you an opportunity to give a shout out to some new members of your family as well as the existing members. I know you got some incredible family, so let us know who they are.
Yes, I have three amazing daughters, and they are all adult daughters. Not one of them lives here in Fort Worth, and two are out of state. I have three grandchildren and two amazing son-in-laws. But in December of this year, on the 13th, we had a great Christmas present. George John Barnard was born, and so
there you go. Good job, Robin.
Yeah,
Atta girl.
We are excited to have him join our family, and we've been spoiling him just a little bit, but that's what you do with babies.
Yeah, and I heard that you spent some time out there in Nevada with them, and you got the morning shift.
I did. I got to hold him for like 3 hours straight. It was awesome.
At 3 a.m. in the morning.
Hey, you do anything if you're a Nana. So
you're not joking.
Yeah.
Well, I want to jump right into the reason we're here, and that is to talk about loss. Yes. It's a tough subject. We've got a box of Kleenex that you will see that has not been a part of the podcast yet. But the reason I'm so excited about this because of what I know it can make and be available for other people. And I'm going to encourage you, if you're watching this podcast and you find somebody at some point in your life that has an unexpected loss or a loss that maybe they saw coming, man, would you think about linking them this episode and the episodes that are going to come with this podcast? Because I think it could really help somebody walk through those early moments of mourning, those early moments of grief, and figure out that God still has a plan, that God still has something in store for them. And I think, Pastor Doris, you're a perfect example of that.
Thank you.
So, how many years ago has it been now since Pastor Ron passed away?
It's been, believe it or not, 5.5 years.
Wow.
And it's hard to believe, but Ron was diagnosed back in 2012 with multiple myeloma. And for 18 months, we walked the journey. And when you hear the word oncologist, you're like, what? That can't be us, but it was. And so for 18 months, Ron went through treatment, and he continued working as a pastor here at Christ Church, which was amazing and such a great honor and a blessing. But as we walked the journey, he went through treatments. And for those of you that have had cancer or are in that journey right now, it's a difficult journey. But God gave him strength and helped us walk through that time. The oncologist would say to him, Reverend Turner, you're a very sick man. And he would go, okay, and just keep working.
Yeah.
But he was in line for a transplant in December of 2013 and became very ill because of the treatment that they gave him. And so he was not able to go through with that transplant, although he had an exact match in one of his sisters, and she was ready to go. But in March of 2014, he went home to be with the Lord. We miss him greatly, but
Sure.
We know he's not suffering, and we've joked around saying he's probably doing some remodeling there in heaven because that was his passion. He always liked to do something with his hands.
That's the truth. Talk to us a little bit about how long had you and Pastor Ron been married? Where had your kind of lives taken each other to bring you all the way here to Fort Worth, Texas?
So we were married almost 43 years.
Wow.
We met in Bible college in Springfield, Missouri. They used to call it Central Bridal College, but it was Bible college. But anyway, we pastored then after we left college. We pastored in New Hampshire for 12 years. an amazing church there in Derry, New Hampshire. And then we went on to Massachusetts and pastored for 4 more years. After that, Ron was on staff as a counselor at Emerge Ministries in Akron, Ohio. And then as we neared our 15-year mark in Akron, we received a call from Pastor Doris asking if we'd like to join the staff here at Christ Church. And we go, no, we're really happy doing what we're doing here. I don't know that we're going to move to Texas. But
Sure.
Then when Pastor Cindy called in January of the next year and said, we're one of the, I think it was Brock was getting married, and she wanted some counseling done for them and premarital. And so then Pastor Ron opened up that window and started praying, and guess what?
You wound up here in the great state of Texas. The best move you've ever made.
Absolutely.
So I came on staff back in 2011, and Pastor Ron immediately was one of the guys that was very influential early on in my first couple of years here. At the beginning, I'll be honest, I didn't think he liked me, and he might not have, because he kind of held me to a standard that I hadn't been held to before, and wanted a lot from me. And he was definitely on staff as our pastoral pastor. He always asked the questions that were important and necessary. When he passed, it was a great loss for our church and obviously for your family. But man, I cannot tell you enough, and I know you hear it all the time. I would not be who I am if Pastor Ron hadn't spent a lot of hours and a lot of time talking with me, and sometimes, like you said, doing different projects with him meant he needed to tell you something or ask you something. So he was really good about that. One of the things that is interesting to me now seeing this side of it, what part do you think the two of you played when together? As far as I know a little bit about, he wasn't scared to talk to anybody. He never met a stranger. He was very caring and loving. And seeing you now, it's hard for me to remember kind of what your personality was and what your dynamic was with the two of you as you were doing ministry together or as you were just doing life together. What was that like for the two of you in your household?
Well, in the pastoral role, he was the pastor and I was the pastor's wife, and did a lot of behind the scenes work. I was not in the pulpit. I did not preach, and he used to call me the slack lady because I would always pick up any details of something that didn't get done and would take care of it, and happy to do it always. In the home, he was definitely the head of the house, and we just made things work. And did we have ups and downs? Absolutely. Sure. But we just enjoyed life together. And
awesome. So I bring that up because later in the episode, I want to talk about how you feel like that's kind of transitioned now. But I want to dive into the moments, the final moments, and the moments leading up after his passing, because I think it's really important for us to know, number one, as those that are going to be experiencing that loss, what emotions we're going to feel, what things are going to surprise us, what things we thought we were going to feel and maybe we didn't. From someone that hasn't lost an immediate family member, as far as a spouse or a child, or even my mom and my dad and most of my grandparents, a lot of my grandparents are still alive. So for you, what was some of the unexpected that after, maybe days after, weeks after, a year after, what were some of the moments that brought emotion to you that you didn't expect?
Well, right before Ron passed away, my middle daughter, Becky, and I pretty much were with him wherever he went, whether it was in the hospital or for treatments. And so we functioned on like an autopilot. We just kind of kept going and kept managing each day as it came, not really having a lot of emotion, except when there were those moments when it was real difficult pain-wise. But after he passed, I would say usually people would come up and somebody would say, I know how you feel. And I would look at him and say, I wouldn't always say it, but I was saying, I don't think you know how I feel.
In the back of your mind, you're thinking, I don't.
And I would often cry, and started off by saying, I'm sorry. And then I had some wise counsel from somebody who says, never apologize for tears because tears are healing. And
Wow.
so even now, when I will catch myself just talking to somebody and the emotion kind of rises up and you don't expect it. It kind of catches you by surprise. Just perhaps maybe talking about a memory or something that we did together. Those are the things that kind of catch you by surprise. But I say, just give me a minute, and and then you continue on.
I like that, not apologizing for tears and really just the emotion of it. Why should I apologize because I've been caught up in an emotion that I didn't expect? Because that's normally when tears come, is the unexpected. When someone is greeting you, talking to you. And were there more times or more conversations or more interactions where those emotions kind of spurred on than others? Was it really when people were trying to comfort you or console you, even if they were doing it completely terribly? Was there those moments, or was it the everyday walking in and trying to find the new normal that kind of caught you off guard?
I think, it's almost like a combination of both, because
Okay.
it happened both times. Like just maybe going into the whole, our house, because I still live in the same house that we lived when we first came here to Texas in 2005. And there would be times that, you'd look at something, and even now when I go outside to work in the yard, that was a project that we did together.
Yeah.
I just feel a little bit of sadness there, wishing he was there to help. But I think there were a lot of times, though, when people would come up and start to talk to you and trying to say words of comfort and consoling, not that they weren't, that would really catch me off guard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You mentioned something about people saying, oh man, I totally know what you're going through. Is that, I've heard from other people, that's such a rough thing to say to somebody. What are some of the things that people said to you that I'm sure they meant the best, but wasn't either the right time, and please don't use names. If you want to, go ahead. Wasn't the right time, or maybe wasn't received in the right way? Because I want to know that when I'm trying to comfort someone maybe that has experienced loss, that I say what they want to hear. Or, is there value in just not bringing it up? Like, I also feel like if I don't say something, they're going to feel like I don't care at all. So where's that how do you walk that tightrope?
I think to give opinions or thoughts like, well, God had a purpose, in taking Ron now. Well, yes, he did. That's not very comforting necessarily. Sure. Another way to say that would be, I know this is a real difficult time, and I believe that in the days ahead, you're going to know that God's peace and comfort are there. Mm-hmm. And maybe later on, you'll be able to see exactly the purpose and the plan. But right now, to say, well, I'm sorry, but,
Yeah.
And I know that they mean very well, and but that's the kind of comment to maybe just say, I'm really sorry, and I'm praying for you. That's what I work at saying to people now, especially or even coming up and giving a hug, not even saying anything, and just say, I'm praying for you today. That's
really powerful. Yeah, I think I know for me, I often think that I have to come up with the right words at the right time and make somebody feel so, oh, wow, now I feel so much better. But the truth is, mourning and grieving take time, and very rarely, if ever, does something that I say in passing ever going to completely transform someone's grieving process. Right. So why would I put that type of weight on myself instead of just saying, I love that. Hey, I'm praying for you. Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm praying for you. And then asking that question, a lot of times I try to follow up with, is there anything that we can do for you? And 9 times out of 10, they're like, no, thank you so much. Your prayers are so great. Sometimes they give me some physical, hey, we've got a lot of family in town, and it's expensive to cook for everybody or whatever. And so we start, I'd love to talk for that for a minute. What were some of the best things that people did, not just said, but people maybe did for you or your family or the girls or the grandkids in that process that kind of just took maybe that tension away from you, or maybe that thing of, oh man, because a lot of times in the middle of loss, the last thing that you think about is taking care of your own physical needs. And so food, making sure people that are coming in town have rides and all that stuff. What were some of the things that were helpful to you guys during those first couple days?
Well, even at the very end, we had just amazing people bringing in groceries, paper towels, toilet paper, trash bags, things like that. It was just wonderful, a wonderful blessing. Bringing in food, and even after bringing in food to the family, we had people here from out of state. And just blessing us. It was, again, you don't think about, I need to go get this from the grocery store or this and that. Because, again, you're kind of running on autopilot. You don't think of the nitty-gritty things that we do on a regular basis. So just people, and it was just ongoing, and it was an amazing blessing.
Now tell me, did they text you and ask you what groceries you needed, or did they just kind of go and get what they thought you might need? Because I feel like there's so much surrounding, and we're going to talk about kind of the funeral arrangement and all that process, because it's so daunting. I want to talk about that a little bit later, but there's so many decisions that you have to make. And you had, I know just from knowing how far in the process Ron was as far as his health deteriorating, that there were some things that you started preparing for even before he passed, but there's still so many decisions to be made. Is it more helpful for someone just to do what they feel like you need, and then, or is there maybe more, is it better for me to text, call? I feel like some people are balancing that line of, I don't want to be too pushy, but I also don't want to go and grocery shop for something that they don't need or already have. So how do I manage that?
Well, our girls, we were all together, especially the last 2 weeks. And so they were pretty much hands-on, passing information to the church office, and people, if they contacted us, we would ask them just to contact the church, and they had a list of things that we could use and would appreciate it if they wanted to bring them by. So that's kind of how we managed it. My girls just were such a blessing, and we all worked together.
Even Robin?
Even Robin
Okay,
was there
good.
for 2 weeks. It was at a time where one of her bosses let her off and said, yes, you need to go and be with your family. So it was an amazing blessing to have the 3 girls there and 3 of my grandchildren, my 3 grandchildren at the time, with us there. And then we just hung out together. I think that in itself, I know I'm like veering off of the immediate question, but I would encourage families, when you're in a time like that, when you know we had been told you have about 2 weeks left. We spent as much time just hanging out. The grandkids would lay in the bed with, Papa, and just they would read together and talk. And his father was able to come from Maine, and one of his sisters. And it was just, I would encourage families to spend time together, talk, and of course, Pastor Ron wasn't able to talk a lot at that time. It was just really weak and tired. But there is a strength that comes from being together as a family.
I remember a couple of days out when all the family was still in town, Margie and I think my mom and dad even, we all came over, and we did what I think we've done every time we've ever come over, is we just played card games. And we didn't know what else to do.
Yes.
And it was awkward and yet comforting for me to know that we could kind of get back to that normal usual. But at the same time, I was also the entire time walking through this forward backwards of, are we here too long? Do they want us to leave? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Because your house was filled with family already. And I was like, maybe they just want time with the family. And then the girls would text and be like, come over and play cards. I'm like, okay, cool. So time is such a big thing, especially maybe for someone that doesn't have much family left, or just going and spending an hour with them.
Right.
And again, not having to take on the role as the counselor.
Right.
Hey, I'm going to sit here and you just tell me, why don't you lay down and tell me what you're feeling? How are your emotions? No, just being with someone, I think, is so powerful. I think we undervalue that. Texts are great. Phone calls are great. A quick passing message. But man, we see that all the time when we go to the hospitals and visit people is, at the end of someone's life, they'll look at you and they'll say, hey, I remember not the sermon you preached, but I remember that one time that you were in the hospital with me for an hour. And you're like, wow, I didn't know like we hardly even talked. I just watched, your doctor come in and give results, and like, yeah, but you were there.
Right.
And so that's such a big moment. It's just the presence. Presence is power.
Yes.
And so just being in that moment, and my expectations were, oh man, this is going to be real sad. We're going to go in there, and I was trying to put my sad hat on and my comfort, and instead we're like, all right, let's play apples to apples. Let's get after it. And okay, we did.
Right.
And we have a little trash talk with our group and your girls. And so I didn't know how much I was willing or able to trash talk, but I found out real quickly it's competitive, so we might as well get into it.
There you go. I remember one evening that we called, your dad and mom to come over, and it was after, I think, a church service or something, and there was some other friends that came, and we just sat around on the floor in the room where Pastor Ron was, and we just sang songs and talked and prayed, and it was just, that's where we gained a lot of our strength, was just from people coming together, praying with us. And
yeah, that's a question, I guess, to go off of that. What level of normality are we supposed to approach the person that with loss the next few times we see them? I guess is a question. Like, I know there's a new normal in your house, but for our interactions, does it make it more difficult if I come to you and I'm very sheepish and very kind, or that we just get back into the flow of things? Like, what's better? And maybe it's a combination of the two early on and then as you separate. But I think my biggest thing is, man, I want to get back to normal. I want to get back to where we can joke, or we can laugh, or we can, if we need to, get back to doing business as the church. We need to. Where can normal start? Where should it start? And at what point do we get back into normal too fast that we're not honoring what is the loss that has happened?
For me personally, I did take a little bit of time, not too long, but for me, I was needing to kind of jump back into having a routine, coming to work, and you're very tired after. We were very tired after the whole process, so it takes time to really get back in full swing. But for me, I wanted to be back in church around people that I feel support and strength from, and encouragement. Not that I didn't around family, but a lot of the family went back to their homes. Right. And so for me, it was jumping back in and just getting involved in my regular job or regular routine. And so that was very helpful. That doesn't always work for everybody. Some need time away and maybe go somewhere. But for me, I just chose to kind of jump right back in. I think I might have been in church maybe the week after, and it was just great to see everybody. And
now, you said you took some time. About how much time did you really step back after the funeral was done, after those moments, or did you really kind of jump back in?
I really jumped back in. You know me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stay away too long and sit around. But
was there any point that you thought, maybe I came back to the office too soon, or maybe I came back, or I started doing something sooner than I should have done?
I don't recall anything right now that sticks out, but I had moments, but I think I kind of worked through those moments where you just kind of have to gather your emotions and then keep going forward. And
yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that I hear from people, is that you really don't know how you're going to respond to a certain situation until it's right there in front of you. You don't know how you're going to respond to, eating a meal at the same kitchen table in the same chair without that person sitting next to you, or going out to dinner, or preparing, doing your taxes because they always did it, or the emotion is unexpected. And so you can't always prepare yourself for it. But I love going back to what you said, don't apologize for it.
Right.
There's some things that you don't know how you're going to feel until you feel it. Holidays, we a few weeks ago you even mentioned when we were at a dinner together and they started singing Christmas carols, and you were like, you told us afterwards, which is, I love that you do this because you don't just hide it on the inside, but we were talking afterwards and you go, I'm not gonna lie, hearing those Christmas carols, I could almost hear Ron's voice because he would always sing, and I was like, wow. Yeah. You don't think of all the things that you're going to feel in the moment. You can't make a list of, okay, at our anniversary, that's going to be tough. At Christmas, this is going to, You live life, and sometimes it pops its head, and you just go, okay. But how do you deal with those unexpected moments, I guess?
Well, at the Christmas, dinner that we were at together, I just kind of kept standing there and listened to the song, and then I kind of joined in when I was able to. But I actually got, choked up and just like, man, this is, why is this bothering me, or why? And it's not bothering me, but why is this so emotional? But then, spending holidays 4 or 5 together, you just become accustomed to each other and always expect to be together, never thinking that it's going to be you that, is walking the journey by yourself. So,
yeah. So just walking through it, just keep kind of going and
right.
realizing that, emotions are going to come. You can't control it. That's why, that's why so many of us we're not ready for tears to come. We're not prepared for it because we didn't leave the morning going, you know what? I think I'm going to cry today.
Right.
I think I'm going to get emotional today. No, it happens.
It just happens. Right.
Thanks for joining us today here at the Movement Podcast. Once again, if you enjoyed the conversation, keep it going by dropping a comment or hitting the thumbs up button. If you have any ideas for future episodes, feel free to let us know. In order to know when our next episode comes out, please, please, please hit the subscribe button and tap the little bell so you can get notified when we put out future episodes. Thanks again for being part of the movement.